with me!
So we beat up Candon, pick up the swoop accelerator engine thing and stuff it in our magical RPG pockets, and then go back the way we came. And the game's narrator now wants us to talk to Mission because she seems distant. Maybe we should go talk to her then, because Caden isn't here anymore. And the narrator just has to pick on our other side characters. Who knows what flag or reason why this occurs. Mission tells us about how she and Zalbar met, and then we learn how to say mission in Wookiee. Wow, and the story involves the Volcars, so Mission has been hating these guys ever since, which doesn't make too much sense considering she can join them just fine a previous scene ago, arguably with some smooth talking by Candon. However, it does prove one thing, that in joining the Volcars, it shows us that even though she could have had a historical reason to dislike them, it's her naivete that is her main weakness. This is shown by the backstory and by a little bit of metagaming. This is consistent with her character and shows us that she is unaware of her capricious nature, even to the point of telling us she's not a child anymore, despite thinking and acting like one. So we get back to Green Lantern and talk to him forcefully.
Don't worry. I'm a man of my word. I promised you could ride in the swoop race under the Hidden Beck banner, and I'm still going to let you do that.
Okay, but why? Don't you have a better swoop racer, like a native who's been doing this every year? We want to improve our odds. Why get us to do it? We seem more like a soldier kind of guy. Maybe we can get Caden to fly one? He's an ace pilot. Starships and swoops are like the same thing, right?
And I'm even going to go one better. I'm going to let you ride the swoop bike with the prototype accelerator installed on it. Without it, you won't stand a chance.
Okay, so we'd suck without the accelerator, but you guys will be just fine without it. Or maybe the opposition is really good and that's why we need it. But don't we want maximum ability to win regardless of who the winner is, as long as it's on the same team? Why are you giving us the fastest vehicle when we're definitely not the best at the task? I'm not exactly following the logic here. And am I the only one representing you guys, or do you have other people representing your gang? How does this whole thing work? And if so, why not give them the accelerator?
Gadden, you can't be serious. We need one of our best riders on that bike. We can't let some rookie take the prototype engine into the race.
Thank you, narrative.
There's a reason I'm letting you take the prototype engine. The accelerator isn't stable. There's a good chance it could explode during the race.
Okay, so it's dangerous, so you'll give it to me. Okay, that's an excuse, but it's not a great excuse. Again, someone with better skills who knows the accelerator and can fly a swoop better would have greater chances of taking advantage of the faster speeds and not blowing up.
I can't ask one of my own riders to take the risk. They'll be running unmodified swoops in the race. You'll be the only one using the prototype. If you can complete the track before the accelerator overheats, then you'll win for the Becks. If you die, then one of my other riders could still come through for me. You don't get to be leader of a swoop gang if you don't know how to work all the angles.
Hey, that's a good lampshade. It's not perfect, but it is perfectly sufficient. It explains the questions that just popped up in her head as we went along. Hey, great. This is how the scene should be done. This is how you deal with questions of logic in a science fiction story. Questions become raised and then immediately answered. Everything to our plot and Green Lantern's plot makes sense. We are now sufficiently motivated to win this race. So instead of taking Caden to ride it, we go ourselves. We get a tutorial on how to ride, and we do some actual test rides instead of going in blind. That makes sense. And yeah.
Now this is pod racing.
Looks like a pod racer, and we exit the pod racer with our swords because, you know, we need swords to pod race. We can encounter Shepard in a cell, but we can't do anything with her yet. We win the race, which is like a straight drag strip with boost tiles, and we're amazing at it.
There is something you must know. The winning rider cheated!
Yes, I believe we did. Brejik gets all uppity about it. Shepard wakes up, does a biotic push, opens up the cell, which I guess means she was just waiting for us to be near her. Pulls an amazing force kick, only seen by Luke himself.
You were restrained by a neural disruptor! How could you have possibly summoned the will to free yourself?
You underestimate the strength of a Jedi's mind, Brejik. A mistake you won't live to regret.
Alright, so we learned she had a neural disruptor on her, which you could argue could prevent her from acting, but she still broke it, because she's a Jedi. So the question still remains, why didn't she escape earlier when there were less people around?
How did you end up racing for these swoop gangs?
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to
Well, as far as rescues go, this is a pretty poor example.
Shepard thinks she saved us. We think we saved her. These crazy kids. We get an extended cutscene of Shepard defeating Revan, and we wake up in our apartment. Shepard gets some weird clothes, and Caden is here, I guess. I assume that was a day change, and we woke up from a rest at least. The next scene is Caden immediately attacking Shepard's lack of leadership experience and abilities, and they get into an argument. And this is really how you do it, not immediately jumping to and from scenes, but the pacing so far has been fantastic in the narrative, so this is just immediately jumping from conflict to conflict with characters attacking each other's obvious weakness. This is great stuff. This is how side characters work, and with giving us choices to interact in this scenario, this is good storytelling. And the addition of gameplay options. It's not amazing, but it's hitting all the notes you should do in storytelling with side characters, at least in games. We can then choose a middle-of-the-road option, and Caden is all hung up on just escaping the place regardless of who's in charge of what, which is kind of odd since we're all sort of leadership material here anyway. We're all experienced. She recommends we go to the cantina for help getting out of here. And then the conversation ends, and then another immediately begins with Shepard, and we talk to her about a vision. And she speculates as to her power possibly interfering with our dreams for some reason, and that the Force is big and complicated. So we leave the apartment, and another scene immediately comes to us. We get a message sent from Canderous. He's at the cantina, which is where we're going to go anyway, which kind of makes this whole scene redundant. But it seems that, I don't know, maybe the writer is playing it very safe and filling in all the details, giving us breadcrumbs to go to our plot point even though we know where to go, by a suggestion from another side character. So we meet Canderous. He wants us to leave, or he wants to leave as well, and we want to go with him. He wants to break into the Sith military base and steal the launch codes, so if anyone does take off from the surface, the ship will not get shot down, I believe. In return, he'll get us access to Davik's flagship, the Ebon Hawk, but we need a droid from a character named Janice Nall to slice through the base and their security, so we're off to go there. Now, the excuse he gives us for not doing it himself is that everyone knows him and that he works for Davik, and then the Sith would just storm Davik's estate and get the codes back, which doesn't make too much sense since he wants to leave the place and leave Davik's employ and steal his ship in the process. Now, this isn't really a question that needs to be brought up as he's asking for our help anyway, implying he needs assistance, but in the details, it's interesting that the narrative is giving us a reason here. It's not a great reason, but it's something. It's also nice to know that the narrative is making Canderous a plot provider, making him integral to the story here, the same way that Mission was. But we have an extra reason to do things. If we don't do it, his plan may fail. Though I'm not sure how to gauge the validity of his concern here. I mean, why hide the codes at Davik's place if you do intend to steal them? Why not disguise yourself? Why not hide them somewhere else? Why couldn't the Sith simply change the codes? This is not too important, but because the narrative has given us this explanation, our minds are now trying to figure out what these codes actually mean. We also see the prototype for dynamic party interaction in BioWare games, when we just waltz through the city and Caden and Shepard just start talking to each other. We have no control over this. Essentially, Caden was curious what happened to her lightsaber and how she was captured and that she was exhausted from her battle meditation in the ship and literally just couldn't find her lightsaber. She just lost it. So anyway, no force powers, no deadly weapon, and explained in a comical way, all right, fine. Questions that were raised have been answered. And then this random party interaction occurs once again between the two. Caden then argues why Shepard didn't join the war 5 years ago, and that she was just an apprentice who didn't have her battle meditation skill yet. And how wise the Jedi Masters were, and Caden is glad Revan joined the war, while Shepard thinks the Jedi Masters would have joined the war later and saved more lives, which makes absolutely no sense since the Mandalorians were the aggressors and they were killing everyone. It doesn't really attack her sense of pride or belief in the Jedi Masters, but does make it clear of Caden's view of her. This is okay, but there's no real conflict here. Caden just walks away, so it's kind of a miss. We then get into another forced conversation, this time a bunch of racist kids picking on an Ithorian. And then we get into another forced conversation where the narrator thinks it's time to bug Kaidan once again. He doesn't trust us because Revan and Malak were heroes who then turned against the Republic, and he saw good men join Revan and Malak as well. So he basically doesn't trust anyone. In this case, his weakness is kind of, well, public. He's just sort of venting grievances about not trusting soldiers since he's seen them turn on him.
The dark side has nothing to do with why they joined with the Sith. They deserve no mercy.
I'm really now curious what Kaidan knows about the dark side and how this applies properly. Anywho, he knows we have nothing to do with that, and we're on our way. We finally get to Janice Nall's shop, and we get a T3M4 for a party member. And now the narrator wants to pick on Shepard. Okay, just keep jumping in the narrative there, narrator. She's still prideful, and she believes she rescued us when she was in the cage, but admits we did actually help her escape.
Yes, I can see you do not lack an ability, although modesty is another matter.
Then she attacks us on our sense of pride, or her believed sense of pride in us, which is quite interesting because she's unaware of her own pride, it seems, but sees it in us. She's also curious how we were able to get so far in finding her.
It's obvious to me that the Force has been working through you. There is no other explanation for your great success.
Really? No other explanation? Some supernatural power guiding us? What about us just being really good at surviving? Why does everything get answered by, oh, you must be a Force-sensitive person, even though the only thing we talked about that she's aware of that has to do with the Force is a strange dream we had? Sure, she's a Jedi, but Kaidan is with us, and we have this Wookiee and this street-smart girl, and they helped out, so apparently all of this is possible just because we're Force-sensitive, potentially. Technically, we are gaining light and dark side points, but, I mean, this could mean a few things. One, it could mean she's so confident in herself, she barely questions her own abilities. Or two, she's so sure of herself that she's completely unaware of her sense of pride, and thus naive. So using one's own weakness to attack or imply the same weakness in another is okay. It implies she's unaware of her own weakness in herself, even though it is the same negative property. She's just not looking in the mirror, instead looking at others. She's projecting herself. This could be interpreted as she's being stupid or naive or lying maybe, but it nonetheless showcases Shepard as overly confident to having poor interactions with others, to the point of distorting reality unless you're actually discussing the topic with her, then she actually kind of changes her mind. That's a small level of depth, and it's great because of the interaction of the dialogue system allows us to interact with her, and she does actually change her mind. It's not really a conflict, it's just a difference of opinion, not a perspective. It's just like, okay, well, I guess you're right because of the facts. Now, this is uncomplicated. It's not hard to understand. It's very clear. And that's what makes this character, at least at this point in the story, very well told.